For more on the economy there, I spoke to Todd Moss, Chief Operating Officer for the Center for Global Development, and I asked him about his outlook for Africa's economies.
Well, I think after many decades of low levels of growth, we're now seeing extremely high levels of growth in Africa. It's not uncommon for countries to be growing at 6, 7, 8%. And a country like Nigeria is particularly exciting because there's at least 150 million people. It's a big economy. It's growing very fast. And one of the very interesting things about Nigeria is that we think of it as an oil economy. The oil sector is not really growing in Nigeria. It's the services and other sectors that are growing.
Specifically, which sectors?
Well, a lot of it, they're investing heavily in infrastructure, so the construction sectors, the financial sector, the banks are booming, and we're seeing a lot of spin-off type industries, and that's why there's a lot of excitement in Nigeria. One other thing that happened just a few days ago, Nigeria went through a statistical exercise to recalculate its GDP. Turns out Nigeria is almost twice as big an economy as we thought before.
As interesting. When you look at the other countries on the tour for Premier Lee, you've got obviously Nigeria, Ethiopia just recently, Angola and Kenya. Is there something in common among the four countries? Why those countries, you think?
Well, they're all relatively big markets. Ethiopia has a lot of people as well, and they're all growing pretty strongly. They're also all regional economic powers. So if you want to invest in East Africa, the place to be is Kenya and Ethiopia. In Southern Africa, we think of South Africa as the biggest economy, but it's actually Angola that's growing much, much faster than even South Africa.
The past couple of years, as you know, China has invested tens of billions of dollars into Africa, a lot of that in infrastructure, roads, railways, ports, electricity, telecom, all the things that perhaps a lot of people take for granted, but this is number one, very much needed in Africa. How are those projects going, and in terms of China, how do they benefit from that?
Well, when we look at the data on what's holding back African business, why Africa can't grow even faster, or how it's going to sustain these high rates of growth, it's pretty much across the board infrastructure constraints. And here we're talking about power, roads, and transportation systems. And really that's where investment from China, from Europe, from Japan, from the United States is all very welcome in Africa because the demands are so great. Just to give you an example, in Nigeria, going back to Nigeria, right now Nigeria only produces about 4 gigawatts of power in total. Nigeria needs about 50 gigawatts of power. So there's plenty of investment that they need.
And in turn, when you come to think about investment, people want a return on this investment, right? So what does that look like? Whether you're in China, you're in Europe, or you're in America, and you're going to invest in these projects, you want a return. How does that work?
Well, there are different vehicles. You know, for a lot of the infrastructure projects, you're looking at private equity investments. And from my friends that work in private equity, they say that the returns are very high. The deals can be quite complicated because, you know, a power station, you need to have both offtake and fuel, long-term contracts that can take a while. But it's looking like the market is speaking in that people are piling in and that the returns are likely to be quite high.
I can't ignore this, and it's the elephant in the room when you talk about money, and that's corruption. How do the folks that you talk to, how do they handle that?
Well, look, I think corruption's a problem around the world. It's particularly a problem in large construction projects, as we've seen everywhere. And I think that companies, the American companies I talk to, their strategy for dealing with this is just to be open and transparent about it, and to stick to the letter of the law. I think companies that do that wind up being quite successful. Those that try to use shortcuts to try to pay a minister or pay the president's son, those are the ones that get in trouble.
You look at other countries outside of the four we already mentioned. Is there another area that perhaps maybe not quite as populous, but also that has a tremendous opportunity that maybe some of us are overlooking?
Well, I think there are two areas I would look at. We're seeing a lot of offshore natural gas discoveries in places like Mozambique and Tanzania, which in the past have never had that. So there are new natural resource discoveries in the east. In the west, throughout West Africa, you're starting to see a lot. They're smaller economies, but they're very, very dynamic. A country like Cote d'Ivoire, a country like Ghana, even some of the countries like that have had really difficult conflict in the past, like Sierra Leone and Liberia. they're now starting to attract small amounts, but a very interesting investment.